Welcome to cleveland.com. Arthur Chu already is a champion. If you count what he picked up in 11 regular season wins on Jeopardy and 2 Tournament of Champions victories, he's earned more than $300,000 on the game show. $300,000. Still, he enters tonight's contest $10,000 short of the two-game final. The Broadview Heights resident, who's standing behind me right now, or beside me right now, is trailing Ben Ingram. He's an IT consultant from South Carolina by 10 grand. 20-game winner Julia Collins, who everyone thought was the nemesis, she's behind a little more than $19,000. The winner takes home $250,000. Arthur Chu, welcome.
Thank you.
Very nice to have you. I can't believe you're here, and then you got to run all the way to Jeopardy and do tonight's contest.
Yeah, I got to get on a flight, and, and I just flew back this morning, so it's been very stressful.
So come on, the fact of the matter is, this is pre-taped. You already know whether you win. Yeah. So I'm not going to ask you. You're not allowed to say, right?
I'm not allowed to say. It's there was this Onion article that was like LeBron James finishes taping NBA season. It's like that. Like what if the Super Bowl was pre-taped and then the players had to like go home and just wait till it was on TV.
And that actually makes me think of something because it is Cleveland. We're sort of putting on you, who's not even really a Clevelander. I mean, you're not from here, right? You live in Broadview Heights.
I've been here a couple of years.
Been here a couple of years. You're from California originally, right?
I'm from all over. Originally.
From all over.
I mean, I was born on the East Coast, moved to the West Coast, so I'm bi-coastal.
Bi-coastal.
So now I'm in the middle. So.
Swarthmore, which they claim you to. Every story there says it's our college's guy, and here we say it's our Cleveland guy. Yeah. But the thing that always comes here is the Cavs, the Browns, the Indians. We never brought home the championship to Cleveland, and now it's all on your shoulders.
Oh my God!
Can I engage in any more parochial hyperbole about that? But you've written about Cleveland and sort of walking up to people in the street in Cleveland. They do have that attitude, sort of like this is our guy.
Well, I mean, yeah, it was funny. I mean, LeBron kind of stole my thunder again. Maybe that's why. It was like this Jeopardy guy is like the no, I'm coming back, But
so he said, I'm coming back just to take away whatever juice he's getting.
When I was on TV, then when I was like in New York and I was doing media stuff, people knew who I was then. I don't think people would know who I was if I went back to New York, but people definitely still know who I am in Cleveland, especially in Broadview Heights, because I made sure to actually put Broadview Heights on the thing instead of Cleveland. So, the small community of Broadview Heights is very happy they were on national TV because of that.
That is pretty good, and still on it, and on it again tonight. So,
yeah.
All right, so you know if you won or not. We don't know that, but I can ask you this. So let's put ourselves in the position as if this is the moment between the two games. So you played game one of the two-game final. You're down 10,000 to a guy who's pretty darn smart.
Now I'm changing my suit. Yes.
Right, and now you're changing your suit, and you're getting to the next one. So what's in your mind? You're like, I've got another game, and I've never started a game 10,000 bucks in the hole.
It's not as bad as it could have been because I was so far ahead. That's actually the thing, is that a lot of people were kind of dogging on me and saying, oh, Arthur's just a big gambler. He goes for the big daily doubles, but if he didn't have those, he wouldn't be better than anybody else. Well, in that game, I gave up both daily doubles and double Jeopardy to Julia, and Julia got both of those big bets, but I was still able to get enough regular clues that I was, leading by 10 grand at the end. And Ben like doubled up. He had to bet everything on Final Jeopardy, so it was a long shot for him. He pulled it off, but I was still the dominant player. And now, of course, I'm thinking, oh my God, that one, it's all so swingy. It's like a game that comes down to penalty kicks, right? Final Jeopardy. But I've still got, that edge. If I can pull out the same kind of dominance on the board that I did last time, and I get a good Final Jeopardy category, I have a pretty good shot. But the thing is, Ben has already broken a Jeopardy record. He's now 12 for 12 for Final Jeopardy.
Which is unbelievable.
Yeah, the previous record was 10. That was Larissa Kelly back in the 90s. I didn't get that many Final Jeopardies right. Usually what you do is you get a high enough score, then forget Final Jeopardy because it's always like a 50-50 chance whether you get it. But he's got that different kind of knowledge. He's got a very encyclopedic knowledge base. He may not be as fast on the buzzer, but if you give him time to think about it, he nearly always pulls it out. And that's the real challenge.
If you got any questions, you're watching live on cleveland.com, fire away, and I'll make sure that we ask those throughout the conversation today. But you did bet at the end. You're a guy, we've talked a lot about your game theory. Part of it is the forest bounce where you jump all over the board, try to find the daily doubles. But the other is your betting philosophy. Sometimes you bet in the 11-game streak to tie because the tie was a win.
Right.
Sometimes you bet very little in the Final Jeopardy. In this one, you bet 10 grand, but it's a 2-game play. So why did you feel it necessary to bet anything when you're that far ahead?
Because if I were in Julia's position, I would have bet a lot and hope for, because that's the only way I could catch up.
Right.
And so I wanted to put the game behind Julia. I was thinking that usually in Final Jeopardy, the highest chances are everyone gets it or nobody gets it because people's knowledge base is pretty similar. And I think the mistake that I made was not realizing this is not a normal situation. Ben is really, really good at getting Final Jeopardy. So there was a chance that we would both get it wrong and he'd get it right, and I didn't plan for that. But you know, if I managed to like jump 10 grand ahead of Ben, if he doubled up but I still jumped 10 grand ahead of him, then we'd be saying, you know, what a smart move it was for me to make a gutsy play. So
well, it's always smart when when you decide to kick the field goal and it goes through. That's smart. Right? When you have penalty kicks and you put the right guy out there, that's smart. When they miss the goal, not so smart. Well, you still have time to make up. That's the other part, is you probably had in your mind, I would think, even if you missed it, you're going to have time the next day to make it up.
Yeah, I mean, you can get into Jeopardy history. The biggest deficit that was ever made up in a two-day final was 13 grand.
Okay.
And that was before they doubled up the clue values. So that was actually more 26 grand in today's Jeopardy dollars. So it's not as bad as it seems, although it is tough because Ben's a very tough competitor. So.
Yeah, and you know, it was interesting, Alex said in his conversation with you, it's kind of cool when you go on Facebook on the Jeopardy thing, you get little snippets sometimes of the conversations that are had before or after the competition or while you're waiting.
They just started doing that.
Yeah, it's kind of cool. Yeah. One of them, I think, it was from that context, or it might have been one of the stories, Daily Beast or somewhere else, where Alex was talking, I think that it was a conversation that was on Facebook, he was talking how it was exciting to him because the three of you were so very different in the way you played the game. So tell me a little bit about those differences, and did you pick up the same way Alex did, that you play the game differently from Ben and differently from Julia?
Well, there was an article that actually came out when there was all this media hype around me about how Ben and I weren't that different. I guess the biggest difference is that I was super aggressive the whole way through. I've likened it to like a full court press. Ben is very canny, and he does start in the middle of the board to try to grab those daily doubles, but then he kind of relaxes and goes on to play a more normal game. And I feel like I've been able to like keep up that stamina of just like going aggressive the whole time, especially in a tournament where you don't have all those games in a row like in the regular season, and that's the biggest difference between us. Julia is kind of like, she's a pure fundamentals kind of player. Like she doesn't do any of that, like grabbing the daily doubles normally. But interestingly, in yesterday's game, in Double Jeopardy, she started doing that, and she succeeded at it. So, you know, she kind of proved that she could play my game if she really wanted to. She even did a true daily double, I think, for the first time in her Jeopardy career.
That was going to be my other question. Do you have this influence on others? Like, they know you now. Like, before, when you had an 11-game streak, everybody was fresh meat. And they'd never seen Arthur Chu before, but now...
The girl who beat me was the one who wasn't. She was the alternate from the last day's tape.
Right, the one who had seen you.
Yeah.
So now you have these two competitors who probably have done what you did. You went back and looked at everybody in the tournament and specifically looked at every one of Julia's victories. They probably have done the same to you, although perhaps they weren't as bold about saying so. So do you think they're changing their style because of you?
I think Ben already kind of had that style, but I definitely feel like in this last game, Julia was like, you know, she started playing a way that she hasn't played before, and she proved that she could do it. What's interesting, I don't want to toot my own horn too much, but Jeopardy's Jeopardy's actually changing their rule about ties because a lot of people started betting for the tie because I started doing it, which is because I read Keith Williams's blog about. I saw his videos about doing it. So they're now bringing, you know, they're now instituting tiebreakers so people can't tie and both come back over and over again. So
interesting.
The rules have changed because. Arguably something I did. I mean, maybe that's just the perception because it's not like the first time it's ever happened, but people started doing it a lot more after all that media stuff.
So Julia played the game a different way, and Ben played it a slightly different way, and people seem to like those ways a lot better than your way. Let me just share with you a couple of the comments that were on the Jeopardy Facebook page, and then a couple of things that were on your Twitter feed. On Facebook, a guy named Bill says, "I wish Julia knew the final Jeopardy response. Hopefully, she'll make a comeback on today's show, or Ben will win. Anyone but Chu." Kathy says, "I like Julia. I'm okay with Ben winning. As long as it isn't Arthur Chu, I can't stand him." And then finally, Leanne says, "I'm hoping for Julia or Ben, not Chu. Julia and Ben are having a good time, smiling, laughing, just having a great time of it. Chu is driven by the money and has to be number one. Sad to say." So first of all, you are driven by the money, right? I mean, what are you there for?
It's $250,000. I mean, if you actually had that chance. But yeah, no, I know. ever since I was first on the show, you know, my affect, that's my Twitter handle, but the way I come off has been, you know, very, very sort of focused on the game and sort of not as positive as other people. Julia's always very happy, and you know, ultimately you only have so much control over how you come across, and I decided a long time ago, like, I'm here to play a good game and to win, and you know, the way I come off on the show is the way I look when I'm doing that, and I'm okay with that. You know, like, there's a lot of negative comments, but there's a lot of positive comments too. I've got 15,000 followers on Twitter because somehow I got a fan following from being the Jeopardy jerk.
Right, and hashtag choo-choo train.
Choo-choo train, yeah, so I don't mind. You know, it's worked out well for me, it's worked out well for the show. They get this like heel versus face narrative that they get to, you know,
right.
I'm the heel, Julia's the face, Ben is the dark horse, you know, that's how you want it. You want a mix of personalities. It's been great for promoting the show, and it's been great for, you know, me promoting myself. So.
Well, you've always been like, you're into games. You've been a gamer in your years too. There's always got to be a villain. Well, right. Yeah, so yeah. In this scenario, you're the villain.
You play hard. I mean, there's in like sports, there's some players who seem really joyful on the field, and there's some players who seem very like driven and competitive. But in real sports, people don't seem to, you know, stigmatize that so much. There's people who seem really mean on the basketball court, but people tend to respect that more. And I think it's because they respect the game more. And I feel like Jeopardy may not be a sport, but I respect it the same way that, you know, people respect baseball players or football players. That, you know, if you really treat it as a serious competition, you can't blame someone for playing as hard as they can, you know.
I think, too, you're on television, so they're looking for a TV personality, which, I don't know, you're not at this point. You're a competitor in a game. So do you think they're just looking for you to smile more like you are right now?
Maybe.
And would you cave to that?
No, I don't know. I mean, it's the tournament, so it's really hard. If it were like Celebrity Jeopardy and the money were going to charity, you know, then I might be more relaxed. But you notice Jeopardy is a really hard game and it's really stressful. That's why on Celebrity Jeopardy, the celebrities come off as jerks. Right. So how many celebrities were actually at their best on Jeopardy? It's a very stressful environment to put someone in, you know?
Maybe the stress is what led to this. Usually stress leads, I can attest, to weight gain. Alex Trebek made a point the first time he did the little chit-chat with you. He's supposed to ask you about something else. He immediately said, boy, you dropped like 30 pounds. You look great. And everybody, and you mentioned this in your mental floss piece, you had 5 behind-the-scene things, and one of them was everybody's talking to you about getting in better shape. Was that because you'd been on television? You said, I'm going to be back on, I want to be in better shape, or what happened?
I mean, there was a little bit of it, but no, it was really just, I mean, I've been in better shape. I gained a lot of weight when I quit working my like retail job and started working an office job, you know, the same old story, and got a lot of stress but not a lot of physical exercise. And I was just like, you know, partly I'm going to be on TV, but also partly, hey, I don't have to worry so much about putting in long hours at work. I have this, you know, cushion of money. I can rearrange my priorities a little bit, and so I just made a New Year's resolution. And you know, I'm a gadget addict, so there's more and more tools that apps that you can download to like remind you to what you're supposed to eat and what you're not supposed to eat, remind you to work out, and so it's just, you know, it just happened. So.
You seem bemused though that everybody brings it up.
Well, it doesn't seem like, it seems like it's like the first thing everyone notices. I haven't mentioned that. It's like, my wife talks about how, like, you know, if you're a woman, everyone, you know, you could win the Nobel Prize. You could make $10 million, but people are going to be like, oh, you look great.
Yeah, what about that hair?
Yeah, your hair, yeah. And so, you know, as someone in this position who's lost a lot of weight and, you know, had this like dramatic before and after thing, it's kind of surprising to me how much people fixate on that, you know, but I don't mind exactly.
No, it's a good thing, I would think, to be recognized for. Let's talk about Final Jeopardy itself, the Tournament of Champions, and I don't mean Final Jeopardy, but the final 2 rounds in the Tournament of Champions. Are the clues harder?
That Final Jeopardy is one of the hardest ones I've ever seen. I've been getting all the Final Jeopardies so far, including the ones in games where I wasn't in, the ones that people said were really hard, and I'd been getting them consistently, and it was like, I felt like, oh, I had a beat on the difficulty level, and then they threw in that presidential elections one, and that was extremely hard. It was even just hard in the sense it was hard to parse the clue. It was a long and complicated clue. You had to spend time reading it and figuring out exactly, like, we're ruling out 1960 can't be it because it's not people who are sitting president or VP. You know, like, it was a really Byzantine clue, and so, you know, it took me off guard. But yeah, the difficulty level in general has been higher in this tournament than in past tournaments, I think.
I didn't write down the exact words of the clue, but that Final Jeopardy was something like, which year was there not an incumbent running?
Yeah, no incumbent president or VP, but 3 of the 4 president and VP candidates would go on to be president.
And what did you say?
Oh, I just said something totally wrong.
Okay.
I said a year that FDR ran.
Well, I thought of 1960 because, but then Nixon had been an incumbent VP. There wasn't an incumbent president, but that was the rub, is to find that part of it. Yeah. The actual answer was 1920.
1920, yeah.
Which had 2 Ohio guys running.
Yeah. But the important thing was, like, that was FDR's VP run, and if you know a lot about FDR, you know that, but no one mentions that in, like, general histories of FDR. So yeah.
Yeah.
Ben apparently had studied that in grad school.
And you, that didn't come up on your flashcards?
No, it did not. It might have if I'd gone, you know, it's always the one thing you didn't do. Like, if I'd memorized all of the presidential elections, which I was thinking about doing, but there's so many.
Right.
Most of them are not important, but yeah.
That one was.
Yeah.
The Daily Beast says that Julia was sick during this thing, and her quote to them was, "It's a real bummer, it's a real drag, my brain was like a pile of mush." And I just, did you notice that? Did you pick up on that with her?
We all saw, no, she was, like, lying down between games. She was really sick. She wasn't sitting with us in the audience because she was lying down. So, no, it was a real shame. It almost felt like, you know, we didn't really get to have the, you know, Arthur Chu versus Julia Collins matchup that people wanted because she wasn't at 100%. But, you know, the scheduling is what it is. We were even joking that, you know, the alternate for the semifinals was Rainey, who was, like, the next highest wild card, and we were joking about her, like, poisoning Julia or something because you kept offering her, like.
Somebody joked about you poisoning Julia too.
Well, I don't know, but
you wouldn't do that.
I wouldn't do that. No.
But obviously you noticed that, and I wonder, as the competitor that you are, on one end you write these blog posts, you're very compassionate, you espouse a lot of feminist ideals. You would think there's some championing of the woman on the panel. On the other hand, she's a wounded competitor, and you are a vulture. So which way was it?
Would I really be respecting her though if I let her? Besides, it's not me. It's me and her and Ben.
Right.
Ben's the one who's winning right now.
That's
so
right.
All I would be doing would be giving Ben a bigger lead. You know.
But did you look at that and say, I need to pounce? I mean, is that?
Well, there's nothing to. Jeopardy's not really like that. It's,
okay.
You're playing against the board more than you are each other. Everyone's just trying to get the clues first. But I did feel bad, and I've actually been kind of upset at the people who have been sort of saying that, oh, she doesn't really deserve her place in the Hall of Fame, that she had weak competition. I'm like, how do you have weak competition 20 games in a row?
Right.
She's the second winningest player in regular season history, so no matter what happens, she's got her place in the Hall of Fame. Like, to me, that was just like, it was stunning. I mean, to the extent that I benefited from it, I felt guilty about it because it was like, how can you say, oh, Chu's obviously a better player even though he only won half as many games? Because, you know, the fact that she won more games without using unusual strategy just proves she has better fundamentals, right? That means she's a better player. So, I don't know.
She certainly has the knowledge. It's a broad-based knowledge as well. But you've mentioned this before, that a lot of people don't refer to her, as you just did, as the second winningest player. They refer to her as the winningest woman.
Right.
And I wonder what you make of that.
It's good and it's bad. I mean, it's noticeable because there haven't been many female champions in Jeopardy, so the fact that that's changing now and people are noticing that is a good thing. There was even, we kept making a joke because there was this barely coherent guy who posts on the J board, which is this community online of Jeopardy fans, who was like, an outchange, that's the word, outchange for the worse in 2014. It was like, are we going to see only female champions from now on? Jeopardy's being ruined. And so, you know, all the women in the Tournament of Champions like did a group photo afterwards, like the outchange, you know. But I mean, to me, it's always been clear it's not a matter of different abilities. It's just there's a difference in how many men would try out for Jeopardy versus women, and now we're seeing that demographic shift, and so we're seeing more female champions, and that's good. At the same time, it does feel like sort of a consolation prize to say, oh, Julia's the best female champion of all time, when you're overlooking the fact that there's only one man who's better than her, and that's Ken Jennings, you know, and so.
Pretty amazing.
Yeah.
I'm looking at this camera right here, and that's the one that's recording us on cleveland.com, but if I look slightly to the left, I see another camera, and if I look a little further to the left, I see a third camera, and that's because you literally have a documentary film crew following you now. Yeah, so tell me how that started.
That's Scott, and that's we.
Hi. Hi, guys.
I was approached when I was, getting the ridiculous media blitz on Jeopardy about doing like a documentary about my success, which I didn't think was the best idea at the time because the show had already been taped and there was nothing to film. But it's been a wild ride since then, with a lot of media attention for other things, and with the Tournament of Champions and with everything. And so, they were very determined to make the documentary, and I was willing to, see what came of it. And I feel like it's gone in a different direction, and I'm curious, I'm as curious as anyone else to see.
Right, you don't have control over the final product.
But yeah.
What's interesting about it, and I want to make that point, they're not following you, and you can't look at that and say, well, that must mean he wins. They were with you before the Tournament of Champions. Yeah. In fact, you said usually when you study, you'd have the earbuds in, you'd read your flashcards, and you'd be sitting there either naked or just in your underwear in a hotel room. And instead, you actually had a dress for these guys.
I
don't think they would have appreciated that.
But some people said like you can't have a real documentary without the pixelated.
So they were with you beforehand. That's not an indication of how you might do tonight.
There was actually a big deal. I think this is the first time in a long time Jeopardy has done anything like that. And again, not to toot my own horn too much, but we're in sort of a transitional phase for Jeopardy with me and with Julia, and Jeopardy is kind of embracing the sort of star power of its contestants. There was an article about that too. Like they used to just kind of very hands-off and neutral, but now they're getting into it with the live tweeting and the social media and everything. So it's cool. I'm sort of on the inside of it instead of watching it from the outside, but it's still cool.
That's another influence you had, which was the live tweeting.
Yeah.
You'd sit there and do it. You've done it for each of these episodes, but Friday night, tonight, on the final episode, you're going to be at a watch party in Broadview Heights. Are you going to be able to tweet while you're doing it?
I might ignore everybody and tweet anyway. That's kind of what I do.
Hold on. But a watch party, how did that come about?
Oh, I've had watch parties before. They just were smaller. But you know what it was my wife said she didn't want people in our house again so soon because it was stressing her out. So I was like, well, okay, we'll do it in a public place then. So there's this bar near where I live. And I was like, well, if it's in a public place, I might as well invite people on Facebook. And so now there's a bunch of people who I only sort of know who are coming. But, it's a good way to kind of like close off, whatever happens, this is going to be the end of the Jeopardy chapter of my story, and I kind of want to like give it a send-off. So
you send it off, like I mentioned, so far with 300 grand, north of 300 grand. You get 50 grand so far for being in the Tournament of Champions?
50 grand for making it to the finals, so that's third place. If you make it to second place, you get 100 grand, and then first place is 250 grand.
So 250 grand added to the 300. We're talking about more than $500,000. That's a lot of money.
Yeah, before taxes.
Before taxes, of course. That's what everybody who gets $500,000 says. How does that change your life? Are you still working an insurance job during the day, or is that over with?
I'm still working.
Okay.
I'm trying to take it slow, be conservative. It removes a lot of worries from my mind, but I'm still trying to figure out, where the future holds. I'm kind of dipping my toe into this writing and speaking stuff. My idol when it comes to Jeopardy contestants is Bob Harris. He wasn't the winningest Jeopardy contestant in history. He's kind of like a middle of the pack Jeopardy champion, but he kept getting invited back because he was a fan favorite because he's a writer, and he's been a very successful writer. I mean, the first thing he did was his book about Jeopardy, Prisoner of Trebekistan, but then he branched off from there into doing...
It's a great name.
Yeah. Now he's like an advocate for Kiva, doing work with charity in the developing world, and it's just, he really seized the bull by the horns and said, this game show thing, I'm going to like take what notoriety I can get from it and take it where I want to go with it, and that's kind of what I want to do.
Well, it is a launch pad. I guess you can sort of pick your trajectory. Yeah. The trajectory you've picked is to be doing a lot of writing, a lot of blog posts, Daily Beast, Huffington Post, Mental Floss, as I just mentioned, but you're not just writing about, hey, I'm the Jeopardy guy and here's the behind the scenes, which was interesting, but you're taking on some big, weighty topics and saying, I have something to say about it, and people are now listening as a result.
Yeah, I mean, I was doing that before, but no one listened.
Right, yeah, same thing, no one listened. It was your Facebook page or Twitter.
Yeah, I am who I am. I am who I've always been, and I've always been an opinionated person who, gets emotionally invested in things. But yeah, I mean, and then I just kind of fell into that too. I mean, originally I had to deal with the Daily Beast to write like pop culture stuff because I'm good at that because I know a lot of random trivia. But there was the Isla Vista shooting, and I was like, I have to write something serious about this. I even started that article by saying I was going to write something about the Big Bang Theory, and I'm not doing that, And I sort of feel like, I don't know to what degree it's true, but I have a little bit of nerd cred because you can't win this much on Jeopardy without being some kind of nerd. And I kind of feel like 2014's been the year of the angry nerd. It's been the year where we geeks, nerds, whatever, introverted, technically oriented, smart people, mostly smart guys, have to kind of confront like, oh, we've seen ourselves as the underdogs for so long, but now we're winning.
You're coming out of a locker that they shoved you in.
Yeah. And we have to confront the fact that we're not always the underdogs, are not always the good guys. Like Silicon Valley is running the economy and doing a lot of shady things, and justifying it by saying, oh well, we're the real achievers. We're not suits. We're honest software developers and engineers, and yet they're still doing really sometimes worse things than the suits that they're replacing we're doing. And it's like, can we break out of this mindset that we can't do anything wrong because we're the ones who are being oppressed? And to me, that's a big, on a personal level, that's kind of something I confronted with myself because I'd had this narrative in my mind this whole time. I'm a starving actor, I'm trying to like do all this geeky stuff while working a 9-to-5 job, and now I'm rich, and how is that going to change me? How is that going to change my perspective? And it really forced me to like think a lot about like, what am I going to use this for? Am I going to be another one of those people who's just like, oh, I got mine, screw you, or am I going to keep the same values? And so, yeah.
I guess we'll see.
Yeah.
Speaking of being nerdy, guy on Twitter, loved this. He said, people, this is the new and improved Arthur. Faster, slimmer, stronger, yet just as nerdy. Actually, nerdier. Is that all true?
Well, I think you can only get nerdier as time goes on.
But you're wearing a suit now. You're a nerd in a really nice suit.
It's the same suit. It just looks better because it fits better. I did not buy a new suit.
Really?
People don't believe it. Yeah.
It looked different to me. All right, one thing about the questions. So we talked about the 1920 question, but there was one thing that came up in an earlier round where they asked about a congressman and they showed a picture, and you said Tip O'Neill. Do you know who this person is?
That's Sam Rayburn?
No, that's Tip O'Neill. That is Tip O'Neill.
Okay, I'm sorry.
All right. Was it an age thing?
It was the 80s. I was like a little kid. No, most of the time, this is a Jeopardy thing. Most of the time when Jeopardy asks about a Democratic Speaker of the House, it's Tip O'Neill.
Most of the time.
Because he's the Democratic Speaker from Reagan's nemesis. And this time it wasn't, because it's the Tournament of Champions. I knew that the Rayburn building in DC is named after Sam Rayburn. I didn't know anything else about Sam Rayburn, so that quote they threw in didn't help.
I think the reason it struck a chord with dummies like me is because I looked at it and I'm like, hey, there's one I know. Because there's a picture. I mean, they literally gave you the picture of it. I'm like, all right, he's got that one. And then you didn't. And I think, I don't know, collectively across Northeast Ohio, we're smarter than Arthur Chu.
Did you know it was Sam Rayburn, or did you know it wasn't Tip O'Neill?
Well, I knew it wasn't Tip O'Neill.
Okay, see, but you didn't know who it was.
I did know who it was. Well, I don't want to brag. But,
okay.
But I knew from that picture that Tip O'Neill had to be wrong. That's a good point. Most of us just want to know that you're wrong, not that we had it right, right? Yeah. Well, that's what happens when you're the villain. We'll find out tonight how you do on this Tournament of Champions. And really, you said it's the end of your Jeopardy chapter, but it isn't. There's going to be, champions and legends and all that kind of stuff, right? I mean, you wouldn't close that door.
Yeah, but when they do the big reunion shows, assuming I'm invited back, that's like Brad Rutter and Ken Jennings. So I'd be lucky to make it a few rounds without getting kicked out of that. But,
I see. So suddenly humility comes into play.
Well, I mean, it's the difference between like 1 year's worth of Jeopardy champions and the whole pool.
Right. Well, I would say good luck, but it's already happened. But it's been terrific hanging out with you here. And
Thanks.
I guess I can say good luck because we're doing it in fake time.
Yeah,
but good luck. We'll all be watching tonight.
Thanks.
All right. Good seeing you. And that's it for cleveland.com and Arthur Chu. Catch Jeopardy tonight, 7:30 on WOIO Channel 19. Have a great day.